All right, an agonizing loss for George Russell against Antonelli. I think Russell came fourth. It has to be agonizing because, to be honest with you, he would have been fighting for first had it not been for the fact that he stopped before the safety car and lost 10 seconds to Antonelli. In this show, we're going to ask the question, if Russell had waited to stop before that, if he had stopped during the safety car, would he have beaten Antonelli? He definitely would have come top two and not four, based on the analysis that I did, which I also used with the help of AI to figure out some adjustments. What I'm going to argue here is that he most likely would have still come second if he had pitted during the safety car by about a second, and I'm going to explain why. So let's look at what happened. Russell pitted. Russell and Antonelli had bad starts. Antonelli came in sixth at the start, where he was coming sixth at the start of the race. But as things turned out, after Russell pitted in lap 22, I think it was, or before lap 22, thereabouts, Antonelli was in first place, coming all the way back from sixth, and ended up winning the race, beating his closest competitor, who was Piastri, by 13.7 seconds. So that goes to show you just how fast Antonelli is, and just how fast in general the Mercedes car is. If coming from P6, Antonelli can beat his closest competitor by 13.7 seconds. At the time that the safety car happened, Antonelli was coming first. Antonelli had not pitted, but Russell had pitted. If Russell had waited, he would have gotten a 10-second advantage in this race. So he wouldn't have lost by 15.7 seconds. He would have lost by 5.7 seconds if we don't take into account the time that he lost getting bogged down trying to pass Leclerc, Hamilton, Piastri in the back. If you look at that, I put some numbers into AI or into an analytical system, and what we can agree is that he probably lost 5 seconds being bogged down trying to pass Hamilton and Leclerc. So if you take those 5 seconds, he ends up losing by 0.7 seconds to Antonelli. We could argue that he might have still won because, it's not a science to put in theoretical numbers, but those numbers show that he would have probably lost by 0.7 to 1 second. But I'm going to argue that we have some other evidence to show that he probably would have come second in that race. And I think what it is that all throughout this weekend in Japan, Antonelli has been faster than Russell by 0.2 seconds when they're at high fuel rates and when they're in long race pace. So Antonelli's pace has been 0.2 seconds, a lap faster than Russell's in the long run. Now, I'm not doing any sort of exact mathematical calculation here, but it just goes to show you that all week Antonelli has had more pace than Russell. He had the fastest lap time today, several fastest lap times over and over again, and demonstrated less tire drag than Russell. Part of that was due to the fact that Russell was racing others, but just in general on this track, Antonelli has been faster on the S's. He's been faster on the technical corners. So let's go back to where Antonelli was coming first, and I think Russell was coming fourth after having pitted earlier than everybody else. Russell would have definitely passed Piastri and Leclerc, both of whom were not up to 14 seconds, maybe 12 seconds ahead of him at the end of the race. He would have passed those guys, but it would have been very close between him and Antonelli, because Antonelli would have had to make a pit stop in which he didn't have that 10-second advantage. It would be an even advantage. But once you take those 5 seconds that Russell lost in traffic and the 10 seconds that he lost in the pit stop disadvantage, that's 15 seconds. So once again, it keeps him 0.7 to 1 second behind Antonelli. But we can't say that means he wouldn't have won the race, because this is all speculative. If he had been up there, he would have been racing with Antonelli, and things like skill, being able to defend, pass, and then also tire wear would have affected Antonelli. But it just goes to show you how good Antonelli is, in that it's not clear that Russell would have won that race if he had pitted during the safety pit. It's just clear that it probably would have been a very, very close race. And this is not good news for Russell because Antonelli's supposed to be the junior driver. This is his second year with Mercedes. He's 18 years old. This is supposed to be Russell's year to win the championship. But I don't think Antonelli has gotten the memo. Antonelli has out-qualified Russell 2 weeks in a row based on the fact that he's more aggressive coming into the corners, using more aggressive braking and downshifting without having to pay with instability, whereas Russell is a gradual lift and coast approach to harvesting and coming into the corners with early braking zones. Like I said, Antonelli, late braking zones, more aggressive. And by doing that, Antonelli's bringing more speed, minimum speed into the corners, and is also finding a way to counter out the fact that he's wearing out his batteries by braking late, by also braking aggressively and downshifting to give him the harvesting he needs on the straight. So clearly, Antonelli has better straight line speed than Russell. He has higher speed coming into the corners. Russell has better speed through the corners, but he's fighting a losing battle because Antonelli is so way ahead of him because he's entering into the corners with a higher speed. And Antonelli has matured over a year to deal with his problem with tire degradation, which is greatly improved. Now we see that in this track, Suzuka, which is a racer's track, Antonelli's winning. This is the type of tracks that Hamilton's win on, that Verstappen's win on, and now Antonelli's win on. It's not the type of track that a Russell would win on. Russell will win on a track which is not a racer's track, which is more forgiving if you don't have aggression, because this is a high-speed track with low grip. You need to have aggression, and you need to have a very, a very advanced ability to feel grip where there is no grip, which is why Russell has been complaining about lack of rear grip, but Antonelli hasn't been. So to cut things short, I'm predicting, along with the help of analytics, that Antonelli would have still won by 0.7 to 1 second. Let's go through the math again. He beat Russell by 15.7 seconds. Now, he had a pit stop under the safety car, which gives him a 10-second swing on Russell. So let's subtract that 10. So now that leaves his lead from 15.7 to 5.7. But now let's also handicap for the fact that Russell was bogged down in the back and had to race people. That's another 5 seconds. So 15 seconds. So it's still a 0.7 second difference because Antonelli won by 15.7. And we can't really say what would have happened if Russell had pitted under the safety car rather than earlier. But we can say that if the math shows that it's 0.7, it's very close. And we can argue that all weekend, Antonelli has been showing greater race pace. Even before the pitting, he had the fastest lap times by far over Russell. And he came from sixth and found himself after 20 laps or 20 some odd laps coming first. So it shows that right now he's sort of like a force of nature on this track in which he's just fast, very fast. No doubt Russell is very fast, but Russell has been slightly below par for himself and in relation to Antonelli this week, as well as last week. He's been using a lot of excuses about his setup and everything, but I just think that Antonelli's setup is better because Antonelli is able to use a more aggressive setup without having to pay for stability than Russell does. So what it means is that Russell has to forget about the smooth driving and the analytical approach and find more raw talent and speed if he wants to beat Antonelli on tracks where true driver talent and intuition and skill come into play. Let's stay tuned. This is going to be a very interesting season. Everybody thought Russell was going to be the champion, hands down. After this, Antonelli's by 9 points. No doubt Russell will come back, but anybody who could tell me that they know who's going to win the Drivers' Championship between the two of them right now is a motherfucking liar.